The 1970s began with a roar for muscle cars but ended with a whimper. New regulations, rising fuel prices, and changing consumer tastes reshaped the automotive landscape. While some muscle cars adapted and survived, others fell short due to performance declines, lackluster styling, or poor market positioning. These 13 muscle cars represent the models that failed to keep pace with their rivals, becoming forgotten footnotes in the era of high-performance machines.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 13. 1973 Oldsmobile Cutlass Hurst Olds. A car that symbolizes the challenges facing muscle cars during the early 1970s. Once revered for their raw power and street presence, muscle cars were increasingly stifled by stricter emissions regulations, rising insurance costs, and evolving market demands. The Hurst Olds, with its cosmetic enhancements and diminished performance, is a prime example of this transition from performance to appearance. Throughout the 1960s, muscle cars like the Pontiac GTO, Dodge Charger, and Ford Mustang dominated the American car market, offering high horsepower and thrilling performance at affordable prices. By the early 1970s, however, the muscle car formula was under siege from several directions. Emissions regulations stemming from the Clean Air Act of 1970, increased insurance premiums for high-performance vehicles. The Hurst Olds name had a legacy tied to performance, stemming from Oldsmobile's partnership with Hurst Performance, a company known for their shifters and racing pedigree. In 1973, Oldsmobile sought to maintain this heritage by introducing a special edition of the Cutlass under the Hurst Olds badge. Unfortunately, the result was more cosmetic than substantive. The 1973 Hurst Olds featured bold, standout styling, with unique paint schemes, Hurst badging, and a vinyl half roof. Buyers could choose between black and white paint with gold accents, lending the car an air of exclusivity. It included an upgraded interior with bucket seats, a console-mounted Hurst shifter, and special trim. These elements gave the car a premium feel, but they did little to enhance performance. The Hurst Olds came equipped with a 455 cubic inch rocket V8 engine, producing 250 net horsepower. While this figure sounds respectable, it paled in comparison to earlier muscle cars from Oldsmobile, such as the 1968 442, which boasted over 350 gross horsepower. The engine was burdened by emissions equipment that restricted power output and responsiveness. Combined with a curb weight exceeding 4,000 pounds, the car's acceleration and handling were uninspiring. The Hurst dual-gate shifter, a hallmark of Hurst performance vehicles, allowed for both automatic and manual-style shifting. While innovative, this feature couldn't compensate for the car's overall lack of performance. Other features like heavy-duty suspension and wider tires helped with ride quality, but didn't make the Hurst Olds a true competitor to nimble rivals like the Chevrolet Camaro Z28 or Ford Mustang Mach-1. The Hurst Olds was marketed as a muscle car but was more about show than go. While the styling drew attention, its lack of real power and performance alienated enthusiasts who expected more from the by 1973. Muscle car buyers were looking for alternatives that could still deliver on performance despite regulatory challenges. The Hurst Olds was outclassed by competitors like the Camaro Z28, which, although affected by emissions restrictions, maintained a more athletic driving experience. Consumers were shifting toward personal luxury coupes, a category that prioritized comfort and style over raw performance. Oldsmobile tried to straddle both worlds with the Hurst Olds, but ended up appealing to neither camp fully. The Cutlass platform was robust but heavy, and the added weight from luxury features and safety equipment further diminished the car's ability to perform as a muscle car. The combination of a large, detuned engine and excess weight led to sluggish acceleration and poor handling. The Hurst Olds name carried a legacy of speed and power, and the 1973 model diluted this image. Failing to deliver on its promise of performance alienated the very audience it was meant to attract. While emissions and safety regulations presented real challenges, other manufacturers managed to adapt more effectively by investing in lightweight design, innovative engine technologies, and sportier dynamics. The Hurst Olds failed to evolve in these areas. The Hurst Olds foreshadowed the industry's pivot toward personal luxury coupes, which would dominate the mid-1970s. Cars like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Ford Torino Elite offered similar styling and comfort, but with less pretense of performance. The 1973 Oldsmobile Cutlass, Hurst Olds, represents a pivotal moment in the decline of the muscle car era. While it tried to maintain the performance image associated with the Hurst Olds badge, it fell short due to regulatory restrictions, excessive weight, and a focus on cosmetic upgrades rather than substantive engineering improvements. This model serves as a reminder of the challenges faced by automakers in the 1970s and the difficulty of balancing performance, compliance, and market appeal. Number 12, 1974 Ford Maverick Grabber, a car that attempted to cash in on the muscle car craze, but ultimately failed to live up to its aspirations. The Maverick Grabber is a fascinating case study in how automakers sought to merge affordability and performance during a time when muscle cars were under siege from economic, regulatory, and social pressures. Introduced in 1970, the Ford Maverick was Ford's answer to the growing demand for small, affordable cars. Positioned as a step above the Ford Pinto, the Maverick targeted young buyers and those looking for a practical, no-frills vehicle. Its simple design, lightweight construction, and low cost made it popular in its early years, especially as an alternative to imports like the Volkswagen Beetle. In 1971, Ford introduced the Grabber trim, a sportier version of the Maverick. This package added bold styling cues like unique paint schemes, hood scoops, and sportier wheels, but left the car's mechanicals largely untouched. By 1974, the Grabber trim was struggling to keep pace with changing market dynamics, especially as the muscle car era waned. The 1974 Maverick Grabber featured sporty aesthetics to appeal to younger buyers. Key elements included bold two-tone paint schemes, a blacked-out grille and Grabber-specific hood with faux scoops, striking decals and racing stripes along the body, a rear spoiler to give it a more aggressive look. Inside, the Grabber offered upgraded upholstery and minor trim enhancements, but it remained largely utilitarian, consistent with the Maverick's budget-friendly roots. The Grabber came standard with an inline-six engine, which, while reliable, lacked the power to deliver the thrills expected of a muscle car. A 302 cubic inch V8 engine was available as an option, producing around 210 horsepower, but this output was modest compared to earlier muscle cars. Many Grabbers were sold without the V8, leaving buyers with underpowered six-cylinder engines that couldn't match the car's sporty image. The Maverick Grabber's lightweight design should have been an advantage, but emissions controls, lower compression ratios, and added safety features, like the federally mandated bumpers, increased weight and dulled performance. The car's suspension and braking systems were not significantly upgraded, limiting its ability to handle or stop with the confidence of a true performance car. Despite its sporty appearance, the Grabber failed to deliver meaningful performance, especially when equipped with the standard inline-six engine. Even with the optional V8, the Grabber's acceleration and top speed fell short of competitors like the by 1974. Buyers expected muscle cars to deliver a complete package of power, handling, and style. The Maverick Grabber focused heavily on style, but neglected the mechanical upgrades needed to back it up. The lack of a standard V8 engine undermined its muscle car credentials, leaving it as more of a sporty economy car than a legitimate performance contender. The mid-1970s were a challenging time for muscle cars due to rising insurance premiums, stricter emissions regulations, and increasing fuel prices. Buyers seeking performance were gravitating towards smaller, better engineered imports or sticking with established muscle cars that still offered some semblance of power. The Maverick Grabber struggled to differentiate itself in a crowded market. Rivals like the Dodge Dart Swinger and Chevrolet Nova offered more powerful engine options and better handling dynamics. The Grabber's limited features and performance enhancements made it feel like a compromise rather than a serious competitor. The Maverick Grabber's sporty styling couldn't compensate for its lack of performance. This serves as a reminder that car buyers, especially enthusiasts, value substance over superficial enhancements. Ford's attempt to position the Maverick as a budget-friendly muscle car was out of sync with the times. By 1974, the market was moving towards smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles, and the Grabber's muscle car aspirations felt outdated. The Grabber's name and appearance raised expectations of performance that the car couldn't deliver. Automakers must ensure that a car's branding and features align with its actual capabilities to avoid disappointing buyers. The 1974 Ford Maverick Grabber is a cautionary tale about the perils of trying to blend performance and affordability without delivering on either front. While its bold styling captured attention, its underwhelming performance and lack of mechanical upgrades made it a disappointment to muscle car enthusiasts. Ultimately, the Grabber's failure reflects the broader struggles of the muscle car segment in the face of economic and regulatory pressures during the 1970s. Number 11, 1979 Pontiac Firebird Esprit, a car that is both a product of its time and an example of what happens when a once powerful nameplate pivots away from performance. The Firebird Esprit was a trim level that prioritized style and comfort over speed and power, which alienated the muscle car enthusiasts who once revered the Firebird name. Introduced in 1967, the Pontiac Firebird was Pontiac's entry into the pony car market, going head-to-head with the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro. Over the years, the Firebird gained a reputation for blending aggressive styling with strong performance, particularly in its Trans Am trim. Introduced as a mid-level option, the Esprit trim was designed for buyers who valued style and comfort over raw power. The Esprit targeted a broader audience, including women and buyers seeking a sporty look without the aggressive image of a muscle car. Key selling points included upgraded interior materials, refined styling, and a more luxurious feel compared to the base model. The 1979 Esprit offered several design updates to align with the second generation in Firebird's late-decade refresh. Notable features included sleek body lines that emphasized a more refined aesthetic compared to the bold and brash Trans Am chrome in trim accents, as well as unique Esprit badging aimed at distinguishing it from other Firebird models. An interior with improved upholstery, plush carpeting, and optional wood grain trim for a more luxurious experience. However, the Esprit lacked the dramatic spoilers, fender flares, and hood scoops that define the Trans Am, giving it a much tamer appearance. The Esprit came standard with a 231 cubic inch V6 engine, which delivered a paltry 115 horsepower. Optional engines included a 305 cubic inch V8 with 135 horsepower, or a 301 cubic inch V8 producing 150 horsepower. These engines were far from the high-performance powertrains that had once defined the Firebird lineup, leaving the Esprit underwhelming in terms of speed and acceleration. The Esprit's suspension and chassis setup prioritized ride comfort over sporty handling, making it more suited for highway cruising than spirited driving. Weighing in at over 3,400 pounds, the Esprit struggled with the added burden of safety regulations and emissions control equipment, further diminishing its performance. The Esprit's underpowered engine options left it trailing behind competitors and even its own stablemates, such as the Trans Am buyers, who associated the Firebird name with performance, found the Esprit disappointing, as it lacked the horsepower and handling to deliver a thrilling driving experience. By 1979, the Firebird brand was synonymous with the high-performance Trans Am, thanks in part to the popularity of the Smokey and the Bandit films. The Esprit's focus on style and comfort diluted the Firebird's image, creating confusion among buyers about what the car was meant to represent. The late 1970s were a difficult time for performance cars. Stricter emissions regulations, rising fuel prices, and increasing insurance costs forced manufacturers to compromise on power and performance. The Esprit's attempt to shift focus toward luxury and style may have made sense on paper, but it left buyers unimpressed in a market still grappling with the decline of the muscle car era. In the late 1970s, buyers seeking a sporty yet practical car had numerous options, including the Chevrolet Camaro, Berlinetta, and the Ford Mustang Ghia. The Esprit struggled to stand out in this crowded field, offering neither the refinement of European imports nor the raw power of earlier American muscle cars. The Firebird name had been built on performance and excitement, and the Esprit's focus on style over substance undermined that identity. Automakers must ensure that new models align with the expectations set by their brand. While aesthetics are important, they cannot compensate for a lack of performance in a segment where buyers prioritize driving dynamics. The Esprit's sporty look raised expectations that its mechanicals couldn't meet. The Esprit's shortcomings reflect the broader challenges facing American cars in the 1970s. Automakers struggled to balance regulatory compliance with the performance and excitement buyers wanted. The 1979 Pontiac Firebird Esprit is a cautionary tale about the risks of prioritizing style over performance, especially within a brand known for muscle and excitement. While the Esprit trim may have appealed to buyers seeking a more comfortable and refined Firebird, its lackluster performance and diluted identity left it a footnote in the Firebird's storied history. As we reflect on the Esprit, let it serve as a reminder that a car's nameplate carries expectations that cannot be ignored without consequences. Number 10, 1971, Plymouth Duster 340. While the Duster 340 offered some redeeming qualities, such as a strong engine, it struggled to compete with more refined and well-rounded rivals. The Plymouth Duster was introduced in 1970 as a compact coupe built on Chrysler's A-body platform. It was designed to compete in the growing market for affordable, sporty cars, appealing to young buyers who wanted style and performance without breaking the bank. The Duster 340 was the performance-oriented version of the lineup, featuring a high-output 340 cubic inch V8 engine. Plymouth marketed the car as an affordable muscle car alternative to larger and more expensive offerings like the Dodge Charger or Plymouth Roadrunner. The highlight of the Duster 340 was its 340 cubic inch V8 engine rated at 275 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. With a lightweight chassis, this engine provided decent acceleration and performance, making the Duster 340 competitive in a straight line. It featured a 4-barrel carburetor, dual exhaust, and a high-performance camshaft, giving it respectable muscle car credentials. The Duster 340 had a sleek fastback design that was more modern than the boxy shapes of earlier compact cars. Unique 340 wedge, badging, rally wheels, and optional hood scoops added sporty flair. Despite these features, the Duster's overall design lacked the aggressive presence of competitors like the Chevrolet Nova SS or Ford Maverick Grabber. The interior of the Duster 340 was Spartan, with minimal attention given to refinement or comfort. Basic bench seats and limited soundproofing made it feel cheap, even by compact car standards. While optional upgrades like bucket seats and a floor shifter improved the cabin, it still lagged behind competitors in quality and features. Priced at around $2,700, the Duster 340 was affordable, making it accessible to young buyers. However, its low price also came with compromises in build quality, materials, and overall refinement. One of the Duster 340's most significant shortcomings was its lack of refinement. The interior felt utilitarian, with hard plastics, poor fit and finish, and limited creature comforts. Competitors like the Chevrolet Nova SS offered a more polished package with better interior quality and a more balanced ride. The Duster 340 faced tough rivals in the compact muscle car market, including the Chevrolet Nova SS, Ford Maverick Grabber, and AMC Hornet SC 360. While the 340 engine was competitive, the overall package lacked the sophistication and versatility needed to stand out. The Chevrolet Nova SS, for example, combined strong performance with a more refined ride and a better reputation for reliability. The Duster 340's stiff suspension and lightweight design prioritized straight-line speed, but it lacked the handling prowess to appeal to driving enthusiasts. Its focus on performance came at the expense of comfort, making it less appealing as a daily driver compared to its competitors. By the early 1970s, Plymouth was seen as a value-oriented brand, which made it difficult for the Duster 340 to compete against more established performance brands like Chevrolet or Ford. Buyers looking for a true muscle car experience often gravitated toward Plymouth's own Roadrunner or Dodge's Charger instead. The Duster 340 demonstrated that raw performance is not enough to succeed in a competitive market. Cars must also offer comfort, quality, and versatility to appeal to a broader audience. Plymouth's value-focused branding worked against the Duster 340, as buyers often associated the brand with budget-friendly, utilitarian vehicles rather than high-performance muscle cars. Establishing a clear and consistent identity is crucial for the success of any performance-oriented model. The Duster 340's emphasis on affordability and speed reflected the priorities of the muscle car era, but its inability to address shifting consumer demands for refinement and versatility limited its long-term appeal. The 1971 Plymouth Duster 340 is a car that had potential but ultimately fell short of greatness. While its 340 V8 engine offered respectable performance, its lack of refinement, stiff competition, and limited versatility prevented it from becoming a standout in the compact muscle car market. The Duster 340 serves as a reminder that a successful car must deliver a well-rounded package that meets the diverse needs of buyers. Number 9. 1978 Dodge Magnum XE, a car that tried to blend luxury with a muscle car ethos but fell short of satisfying enthusiasts or meeting market expectations. By the late 1970s, the muscle car era was on life support. Rising insurance costs, stricter emissions regulations, and the 1973 oil crisis forced automakers to scale back on the high-performance vehicles that had dominated the previous decade. Dodge, known for its aggressive and bold muscle cars like the Charger and Challenger, was forced to pivot. Launched in 1978, the Magnum XE was designed to replace the aging Charger SE as Dodge's personal luxury coupe. The Magnum XE aimed to blend flashy styling with modern features to compete with rivals like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, Pontiac Grand Prix, and Ford Thunderbird. The Magnum XE had a distinctive design that reflected the disco-era tastes of the late 1970s. A long, sleek hood and a short deck gave it a sporty silhouette. The hidden headlamps behind retractable doors added a touch of sophistication. Chrome accents and optional vinyl roofs contributed to its upscale appearance. While the styling was bold, it leaned more toward luxury than the aggressive looks traditionally associated with muscle cars. Despite offering a big block option, these engines were heavily strangled by emissions controls, resulting in lackluster performance. The Magnum XE was built on the B-body platform, shared with the Dodge Charger and Plymouth Fury. A soft suspension setup prioritized comfort over handling, making it feel sluggish and disconnected on the road. The heavy curb weight, combined with underpowered engines, further dampened its performance potential. Inside, the Magnum XE offered plush seating, wood grain trim, and a range of luxury options, including an 8-track stereo and air conditioning. However, the quality of materials and fit and finish left much to be desired, undermining its aspirations as a luxury coupe. For a car marketed with a sporty image, the Magnum XE failed to deliver meaningful performance. Even the largest 440 V8 struggled to provide the thrilling acceleration muscle car fans expected, as emissions equipment and weight robbed it of its potential. The base engines were particularly uninspiring, making the Magnum XE feel more like a cruiser than a performance vehicle. The Magnum XE's focus on comfort came at the expense of handling. The soft suspension, coupled with its substantial size and weight, resulted in poor cornering and a lack of agility. Buyers looking for a sporty driving experience were left disappointed. The Magnum XE found itself caught between two worlds. It wasn't luxurious enough to compete with true personal luxury coupes like the Ford Thunderbird. It wasn't sporty enough to appeal to muscle car enthusiasts. This lack of clear identity made it difficult for Dodge to attract loyal customers. Rivals like the Chevrolet Monte Carlo and Pontiac Grand Prix offered a better balance of style, comfort, and performance. The Ford Thunderbird, meanwhile, dominated the personal luxury segment with its established reputation and superior refinement. Rising gas prices and stricter emission standards made buyers increasingly wary of large V8-powered coupes. The Magnum XE's thirst for fuel further alienated buyers looking for efficiency in the wake of the oil crisis. The Magnum XE's failure highlights the importance of a well-defined market position. By trying to straddle the line between luxury and performance, it ended up satisfying neither audience. Dodge's attempt to keep the muscle car spirit alive in a changing market was admirable, but ultimately misguided. The Magnum XE needed better engineering and efficiency to appeal to buyers in the late 1970s. While the Magnum XE had a bold design, it couldn't compensate for its shortcomings in performance and handling. A car's success depends on a balance of aesthetics, capability, and practicality. The 1978 Dodge Magnum XE stands as a cautionary tale of a car that promised much but delivered little. While its flashy design turned heads, its underpowered engines, poor handling, and lack of focus prevented it from living up to the muscle car legacy Dodge had built. In an era of changing priorities and tightening regulations, the Magnum XE failed to adapt and, as a result, struggled to find its place in the automotive landscape. Number 8, 1977 Ford Thunderbird, a car that transitioned from its roots as a sporty, performance-oriented vehicle to a bloated luxury coupe. While the Thunderbird was once an icon of style and performance, the 1977 model represents a departure from its muscle car image, leaving enthusiasts disappointed and questioning its identity. Launched in 1955 as a two-seat roadster, the Thunderbird was Ford's response to the Chevrolet Corvette. It combined sporty performance with luxury features, creating the personal luxury car segment. Over the years, the Thunderbird evolved into a larger, more luxurious car, moving away from its sporty roots. By the late 1960s, the Thunderbird had grown significantly in size and weight. As muscle cars dominated the performance market, Ford focused the Thunderbird on comfort and prestige rather than speed. This shift alienated buyers who admired its earlier sporty image. The 1977 Thunderbird adopted a blocky, angular design, following the trends of the time. A long hood and short rear deck, giving it a traditional luxury coupe profile. Hidden headlights that contributed to a clean front fascia. Excessive chrome trim, underscoring its focus on luxury. Built on Ford's intermediate chassis, the Thunderbird shared its platform with the Mercury Cougar. Downsized slightly from the previous generation, the 1977 model was still a hefty car, emphasizing comfort over performance. Inside, the Thunderbird was all about luxury. Plush seating, wood grain trim, and thick carpeting created a lounge-like atmosphere. Options included an 8-track stereo, air conditioning, and power accessories. However, the interior quality didn't always match its price point, with cheaper materials in some areas. The Thunderbird had long abandoned any pretense of being a sporty car. While earlier models balanced luxury and performance, the 1977 version prioritized comfort at the expense of driving dynamics. For enthusiasts, it was a far cry from the agile and exciting cars of the 1960s. None of the available engines delivered the power or acceleration expected from a car with the Thunderbird name. The soft suspension and heavy weight made it feel sluggish and uninspiring to drive. In an era where the muscle car image still carried weight, the Thunderbird's lackluster performance disappointed buyers. By 1977, the Thunderbird was competing in the personal luxury segment alongside the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, Pontiac Grand Prix, and Buick Riviera. While these cars offered similar luxury features, they often did so with better refinement, better handling, or more cohesive designs. The Thunderbird's identity crisis, caught between luxury and sport, left it without a clear audience. Ford faced intense competition in the personal luxury segment. The Thunderbird struggled to differentiate itself from competitors, offering little that truly stood out. Buyers often found better value elsewhere, contributing to declining sales. The oil crisis of the 1970s had shifted consumer priorities towards smaller, more fuel-efficient cars. The Thunderbird's large V8 engines and poor fuel economy were out of step with the times, further reducing its appeal. The Thunderbird's shift away from its sporty origins highlights the importance of staying true to a brand's identity. While adapting to market trends is necessary, abandoning core values can alienate loyal customers. The Thunderbird struggled to find a balance between comfort and driving dynamics. A successful personal luxury car needs to offer both, as seen in competitors like the Pontiac Grand Prix. Ford's focus on size and luxury overlooked the growing demand for smaller, more efficient cars in the late 1970s. Automakers that adapted quickly to these changes, such as Japanese manufacturers, gained a competitive edge. The 1977 Ford Thunderbird serves as a case study in how a car can lose its way. Once a symbol of style and performance, the Thunderbird had become a bloated luxury coupe with uninspired performance and unclear direction. While it may have appealed to buyers seeking comfort, It alienated enthusiasts and failed to compete effectively in the crowded personal luxury market. In the end, the 1977 Thunderbird reminds us of the challenges automakers face in maintaining a car's legacy while adapting to changing times. Number 7, 1976 Chevrolet Laguna S3, a car that promised speed and excitement with its NASCAR-inspired looks, but ultimately failed to deliver. It's a classic case of style over substance, where a bold design masked significant flaws in performance and practicality. The Chevrolet Laguna was introduced as a mid-range trim in the Chevelle lineup, designed to offer a sporty yet practical alternative for buyers. By the mid-1970s, Chevrolet aimed to capitalize on the Laguna's involvement in NASCAR, where it gained a reputation as a competitive stock car. The Laguna S3, introduced in 1974, featured an aerodynamically styled front end designed to improve performance on the racetrack. This connection to motorsports added to its allure, attracting buyers looking for a car with racing pedigree. The 1976 model was the last of the Laguna S3 line and featured a distinctive urethane front fascia that was sleeker and more aerodynamic than typical muscle cars of the time. Bold striping and sporty decals that emphasized its racing-inspired image. Opera windows and vinyl roofs that hinted at the growing trend toward personal luxury. The Laguna S3 offered several V8 engines, but emissions regulations severely restricted their power output. A 350 cubic inch V8 with 145 to 165 horsepower. A 400 cubic inch V8 producing around 175 horsepower. A 454 cubic inch V8, the most powerful option, struggled to exceed 215 horsepower. Compared to earlier muscle cars, these engines lacked the punch needed to deliver thrilling performance. The Laguna S3 was a heavy car, weighing over 4,000 pounds in some configurations. This heft, combined with its modest power, resulted in sluggish acceleration and lackluster handling. While its NASCAR-inspired front end improved aerodynamics, it didn't translate into significant on-road performance gains. During the mid-1970s, muscle cars faced skyrocketing insurance premiums as insurers targeted high-performance vehicles. The Laguna S3's sporty image made it a target, even though its performance didn't justify the high premiums. The Laguna S3 was a product of the malaise era of American cars, characterized by stricter emissions regulations, fuel economy concerns, and increasing safety standards. These factors led to underpowered engines, heavier designs, and compromises that left enthusiasts disappointed. The Laguna S3 competed with other mid-sized sporty cars like the Pontiac Grand Prix, Ford Torino Elite, and Dodge Charger SE. Many of these models offered similar or better performance, often at lower prices. By the mid-1970s, the muscle car era was effectively over. Buyers increasingly favored smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, particularly imports like the Toyota Corolla and Datsun 510. The Laguna S3's large size, poor fuel economy, and declining performance made it feel out of touch with the times. Chevrolet discontinued the Laguna after the 1976 model year, replacing it with the less sporty Chevelle Malibu Classic. While the Laguna S3's NASCAR connection gave it an edge in marketing, it couldn't compensate for its lack of real-world performance. The Laguna S3 prioritized its sporty looks, but neglected the mechanical and engineering refinements needed to make it competitive. Chevrolet failed to adapt quickly enough to the changing market, where buyers were moving away from large, inefficient cars. The 1976 Chevrolet Laguna S3 is a cautionary tale of unmet expectations. It looked the part of a NASCAR-inspired street car, but its weak engines, heavy build, and high insurance costs made it a poor choice for buyers seeking performance. While it remains an interesting footnote in Chevrolet's history, the Laguna S3 ultimately symbolizes the challenges faced by American automakers during the malaise era. Number 6, 1973 Buick Grand Sport, a car that attempted to blend the rugged performance of a muscle car with the comforts of luxury. While this approach sounds appealing, the Grand Sport leaned too heavily toward luxury at a time when muscle car enthusiasts were looking for raw power and performance. The Buick Grand Sport nameplate was introduced in 1965 as a high-performance variant of the Skylark, Buick's midsize offering. Early GS models were powered by potent V8 engines and offered strong performance, solidifying Buick's place in the muscle car market. The GSX, introduced in 1970, showcased Buick's ability to build a muscle car that could rival anything from Pontiac or Chevrolet. By the early 1970s, the muscle car era was fading. Stricter emissions regulations reduced horsepower. Rising insurance premiums made muscle cars expensive to own. A growing focus on safety and luxury shifted consumer preferences. Buick, traditionally a more upscale brand, sought to adapt by blending muscle car traits with luxury features in the 1973 Grand Sport. The 1973 Grand Sport was built on GM's A-body platform, which was redesigned that year to include larger dimensions and more rounded styling, moving away from the sharp lines of earlier models. A heavy front bumper to comply with federal safety regulations, giving the car a bulkier look. While the car had some sporty touches, like optional striping and unique badging, the overall design leaned more toward a personal luxury coupe than a muscle car. The Grand Sport offered several engine options, but all were impacted by emissions restrictions. A base 350 cubic inch V8 producing 175 horsepower, a 455 cubic inch V8 with 225 horsepower, or an optional Stage 1 version with 270 horsepower. These numbers were a far cry from the peak of the muscle car era, where similar engines had easily produced over 350 horsepower. The car's heavy curb weight, over 340 pounds, 4,000 pounds, further hampered its performance, making it feel sluggish compared to lighter, more agile competitors. Buick equipped the Grand Sport with features like plush seating and upscale interior materials, a softer suspension tuned for comfort rather than performance, optional amenities like air conditioning and power accessories, adding to the car's weight and detracting from its sporty image. These features made the Grand Sport appealing to luxury buyers, but alienated muscle car enthusiasts who valued raw power and aggressive handling. Buick tried to cater to two different markets, performance enthusiasts and luxury buyers, but failed to satisfy either group. Muscle car fans saw the Grand Sport as too soft and underpowered, while luxury buyers could find more refined options elsewhere in Buick's lineup. The Grand Sport faced competition from more focused muscle cars like the Chevrolet SS and Pontiac GTO. Even within GM's lineup, the Grand Sport struggled to stand out, as it lacked the distinctive performance features that defined its competitors. Like many cars of the time, the Grand Sport was a victim of the malaise era, characterized by declining performance, rising fuel costs, and a regulatory focus on safety and emissions. These challenges affected all muscle cars, but Buick's attempt to pivot toward luxury only highlighted the Grand Sport's shortcomings. The Grand Sport tried to serve two masters, performance and luxury, but ended up excelling at neither. Successful cars often have a clear identity, whether it's raw muscle or refined comfort. By 1973, the muscle car market was in decline, making it a difficult time to launch a car with a performance-oriented nameplate. Buick's effort to adapt to changing trends was admirable, but ultimately unsuccessful. Buick's reputation as a luxury brand may have worked against the Grand Sport, as buyers didn't associate the brand with raw performance. The 1973 Buick Grand Sport is a prime example of a car caught in an identity crisis. It was a muscle car in name, but a luxury coupe in execution, leaving it unable to satisfy either audience. While it remains a fascinating artifact of the transitional period in automotive history, the Grand Sport's inability to commit to a clear direction ensured its failure in the marketplace. Number 5, 1979 Plymouth Volare Roadrunner, a car that carried a name steeped in muscle car legend, but delivered little of the performance or excitement that had once defined the brand. This model stands as an emblem of the challenges faced by muscle cars in the late 1970s and the dangers of relying on nostalgia over substance. Introduced in 1968, the Plymouth Roadrunner was a sensation in the muscle car market. It offered stripped-down performance at an affordable price, with big block engines like the legendary 426 HEMI that gave it street and strip dominance. The Roadrunner's cartoon-inspired branding, including its famous beep-beep horn, added to its charm and mass appeal. By the mid-1970s, the muscle car market was on life support. Stricter emissions regulations, rising insurance premiums, and the oil crisis all contributed to declining horsepower and growing disinterest among buyers. Plymouth sought to keep the Roadrunner name alive by adapting it to the Volare platform, hoping to capitalize on nostalgia for the muscle car's heyday. The 1979 Roadrunner was based on the compact Volare, a member of Chrysler's F-body lineup. While the car had some sporty visual cues, such as stripes, decals, and badging, its overall appearance lacked the aggressive, muscular stance that had defined earlier models. The Volare platform, while practical and reasonably comfortable, was never intended to support the performance expectations of a muscle car. The 1979 Volare Roadrunner offered 3 engine choices, none of which lived up to the name's legacy. A base 225 cubic inch slant 6 producing a meager 100 horsepower, a 318 cubic inch V8 with 135 horsepower, a 360 cubic inch V8, the most powerful option, offering just 175 horsepower. Compared to the high-performance big block engines of the late 1960s, these outputs were disappointing. The car's performance was further hindered by its modest handling capabilities, which prioritized comfort over cornering or agility. Plymouth marketed the Volare Roadrunner as a budget-friendly performance car, but it was largely overshadowed by competitors. Buyers looking for a sporty car in 1979 had better options, including the Chevrolet Camaro Z/28 and Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, both of which offered more power and style. Critics noted that the Volare Roadrunner felt more like a cosmetic package than a true performance vehicle, with its Roadrunner name serving as little more than a marketing gimmick. The Roadrunner's engine options were underwhelming and failed to deliver the excitement buyers expected from the nameplate. Even the top 360 V8 was lackluster compared to the muscle cars of the 1960s and early 1970s, making the Roadrunner feel irrelevant in the performance market. The original Roadrunner had a clear identity as a stripped-down, high-performance car for budget-conscious enthusiasts. The 1979 version, built on a compact, practical platform, lacked a clear focus and tried to balance too many compromises. Like many cars of the late 1970s, the Volare Roadrunner was a victim of the malaise era, characterized by declining performance, restrictive regulations, and conservative styling. Buyers were no longer interested in half-hearted attempts to recapture the muscle car mystique, and sales reflected that disinterest. Reviving a legendary nameplate like Roadrunner carries high expectations, and failing to deliver on those expectations risks alienating loyal customers. Automakers must ensure that the performance and identity of a car align with the legacy of its name. The 1979 Volare Roadrunner tried to be a performance car, a practical compact, and a budget-friendly offering all at once, and succeeded at none of them. Successful cars often have a clear and focused mission, which the Volare Roadrunner lacked. While the muscle car market had declined, there were still opportunities for performance-oriented vehicles that embraced new technologies or niches. The Volare Roadrunner failed to innovate and instead clung to outdated ideas of what a muscle car should be. The 1979 Plymouth Volare Roadrunner serves as a cautionary tale for automakers. By relying too heavily on a once iconic name and failing to adapt to the changing market, Plymouth created a car that felt like a hollow echo of its former self. While it may hold some nostalgic value today, the Volare Roadrunner remains a reminder that a car's legacy is built on performance, not just a badge and a decal. Number 4, 1973 Mercury Montego GT, a car that aimed for sporty appeal but fell short due to significant missteps. As part of Mercury's mid-size lineup, the Montego GT had the potential to carve a niche for itself, yet it failed to deliver on performance and excitement. The Montego was positioned as Mercury's mid-size offering, intended to provide a step up in luxury compared to Ford's Torino, with which it shared its platform. Mercury marketed the Montego GT as a sporty model aimed at younger buyers who wanted style and performance, but with Mercury's hallmark of refinement. By 1973, the muscle car market was shifting. Emissions regulations, rising insurance costs, and the oil crisis were beginning to take their toll. Buyers still wanted performance, but they also demanded more comfort and efficiency, a balance that many automakers struggled to strike. The Montego GT boasted sporty styling cues such as bold striping, hood scoops, and distinctive badging. Its fastback roofline and aggressive front-end design hinted at performance, but the car's large size and bulk undermined its sporty aspirations. Despite its efforts, the Montego GT struggled to stand out visually in a field crowded with cars like the Dodge Charger, Pontiac GTO, and Chevrolet SS. The Montego GT offered a range of engine choices, but none provided the thrilling performance expected in a sporty car. A base 302 cubic inch V8 producing 140 horsepower, a weak entry-level option, a 351 cubic inch V8 available in two configurations with 177 or 266 horsepower, a 429 cubic inch V8 producing 208 horsepower, powerful on paper but hindered by the car's weight and emissions restrictions. Even with the largest engine, the Montego GT was not a strong performer, taking its time to reach 60 miles per hour and struggling in high-speed maneuvers due to its bulk. The Montego GT's heavy curb weight, well over 4,000 pounds in some configurations, sapped its acceleration and agility. Handling was also a weak point, with soft suspension tuning that prioritized comfort over cornering ability. While the Montego GT offered a smooth and stable ride for highway cruising, it lacked the responsiveness and excitement demanded by sporty car enthusiasts. Buyers were underwhelmed by the Montego GT's lack of focus. It was too heavy and soft to appeal to performance seekers, yet not luxurious enough to attract buyers looking for a premium personal coupe. Sales reflected this identity crisis, with the Montego GT failing to make a significant impact in its segment. The Montego GT's engine lineup did not deliver the power needed to compete with rivals. Even its most potent options felt sluggish compared to the big block engines in competing muscle cars. The car's excessive weight further hampered performance, making it feel more like a grand tourer than a true sports car. Mercury tried to position the Montego GT as both a sporty car and a refined cruiser, but the result was a compromise that satisfied neither market. Buyers looking for muscle cars had better options, while those seeking luxury found more polished offerings elsewhere. The 1973 Montego GT was released during a time of significant change in the automotive industry. Emissions and safety regulations were making cars heavier and less powerful, and the oil crisis was beginning to influence consumer preferences. These factors made it harder for the Montego GT to find a foothold in an already crowded market. A successful car needs a clear purpose and identity. The Montego GT's attempt to straddle the line between sporty and luxurious left it feeling directionless. Even with powerful engines, a heavy car will struggle to deliver exciting performance. Automakers must prioritize weight reduction when designing performance-oriented vehicles. The Montego GT failed to adapt to the shifting demands of the 1970s market. While competitors were finding ways to balance performance with new regulations, the Montego GT fell behind. The 1973 Mercury Montego GT serves as a reminder that styling alone cannot carry a car. Despite its sporty aspirations, the Montego GT was held back by its heavy weight, underwhelming engines, and lack of a clear identity. While it may hold some nostalgic value today, it remains a symbol of the challenges faced by automakers during the transitional era of the early 1970s. Number 3, 1974 Oldsmobile 442, a model that once embodied the muscle car spirit but ultimately succumbed to the pressures of a changing automotive landscape. The Oldsmobile 442 was celebrated for its performance and style in earlier years, but by 1974, it had become a shadow of its former self. The Oldsmobile 442 was first introduced in 1964 as a performance package for the F85 series, combining a powerful engine with a sporty suspension and distinct styling. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, the 442 had established itself as a respected contender in the muscle car category, known for its powerful V8 engines and aggressive performance. The early 1970s brought significant changes to the automotive industry, including increased emissions regulations, rising insurance costs, and the oil crisis. These changes forced manufacturers to rethink their approach to performance cars, often leading to a dilution of the muscle car identity that had defined many models just a few years prior. The 1974 442 retained some of the bold styling cues that made it popular in the 1970s past, such as a distinctive front grille and sporty body lines. However, compared to its predecessors, the 1974 model appeared more subdued, lacking the aggressive stance that had previously attracted enthusiasts. The heart of any muscle car is its engine, and this is where the 1974 442 began to falter. The engine lineup for the 1974 model included the base 350 cubic inch V8, which produced a mere 175 horsepower, significantly down from earlier models that boasted well over 300 horsepower. The optional 455 cubic inch V8, once a powerhouse, was now tuned to produce only about 220 horsepower. This was a stark contrast to its earlier iterations that delivered thrilling performance. The tightening emissions regulations meant that the engines were detuned and less responsive, stripping the 442 of its muscle car persona. The 1974 442 was built on the A-body platform, which provided a comfortable ride but compromised handling and agility. The focus on comfort over performance resulted in a car that lacked the sporty feel that enthusiasts had come to expect from the 442. As a result of its declining performance and the changing automotive landscape, the 1974 442 struggled to attract buyers. The muscle car market was contracting, and the 442 found itself competing not only with traditional muscle cars, but also with growing interest in more fuel-efficient and practical vehicles. The 442's engine options became underwhelming, disappointing longtime fans who expected thrilling acceleration and power. The reduction in horsepower not only diminished the driving experience, but also affected the car's appeal among performance-oriented buyers. The introduction of stricter emission standards meant that manufacturers had to comply with regulations that led to significant compromises in performance. While other manufacturers found ways to innovate within these constraints, the 442 struggled to maintain its muscle car credentials. The broader shift in consumer preferences towards more practical and fuel-efficient vehicles affected sales of the 442nd. With the oil crisis impacting gas prices, buyers were increasingly wary of high-performance vehicles that consumed fuel at an alarming rate. The 442's positioning as a performance car became less attractive in this new climate. For a vehicle marketed as a muscle car, maintaining strong performance credentials is critical. The 442's decline illustrates how quickly a performance car can lose its identity when power is sacrificed for compliance with regulations. Manufacturers must be agile and innovative when faced with regulatory changes. The 442's inability to adapt to emission standards highlights the importance of engineering advancements that can maintain performance while meeting compliance. Understanding and responding to changing consumer preferences is crucial for any vehicle's success. The 442's struggle in a market leaning toward fuel efficiency serves as a reminder that automakers must stay in tune with the desires of their customers. The 1974 Oldsmobile 442 is a poignant example of how external pressures can reshape an automotive icon. Once a celebrated symbol of muscle and performance, the 442 fell victim to tightening emissions regulations, a shifting market landscape, and a failure to maintain its powerful identity. While the Oldsmobile brand continued on for a while longer, the 442's decline marked the end of an era for muscle cars in America. Number 2, 1975 Dodge Sport 360, a car that attempted to carve out a niche in the declining muscle car market, but ultimately fell short. While it possessed some redeeming qualities, such as a decent engine, the Dodge Sport 360 was plagued by uninspired styling and a lack of clear identity, which caused it to be overshadowed by its more iconic competitors. By 1975, the muscle car market was in serious decline. Several factors contributed to this downturn. Stricter regulations mandated the use of catalytic converters and other emissions-reducing technology, leading to significant reductions in horsepower. High premiums for high-performance vehicles discouraged buyers, particularly younger drivers. Skyrocketing fuel prices made gas-guzzling muscle cars less practical. Buyers began gravitating towards smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles, leaving traditional muscle cars struggling to find an audience. The Dodge Dart Sport 360 was introduced into this challenging environment, and it quickly became evident that it wasn't equipped to succeed. The Dart Sport 360 was based on the compact Dart platform, which gave it modest dimensions compared to earlier muscle cars. Unfortunately, the car's styling was plain and unremarkable. It lacked the aggressive lines and bold visual cues that define successful muscle cars of the era. While Dodge tried to inject some sportiness with optional stripes and decals, these cosmetic additions did little to elevate the Dart Sport's overall aesthetic. The Dart Sport 360's defining feature was its 360 cubic inch V8 engine, which produced 245 horsepower, a respectable figure in 1975. While the engine delivered decent acceleration and power, it wasn't enough to overcome the car's other shortcomings. The Dart Sport 360's handling and ride quality were average at best, with nothing to distinguish it from the competition. Dodge marketed the Dart Sport 360 as a budget-friendly alternative to larger muscle cars like the Dodge Charger and Plymouth Roadrunner. However, this positioning worked against it. Buyers seeking a true muscle car found it underwhelming, while those looking for economy cars considered it too large and inefficient. One of the biggest criticisms of the Dart Sport 360 was its uninspired design. Muscle car enthusiasts had come to expect bold, eye-catching looks, but the Dart Sport 360 blended into the background. Its lack of visual excitement made it difficult to attract the attention of buyers who were already skeptical of the shrinking muscle car market. The Dart Sport 360 struggled to establish a clear identity. It wasn't as powerful as traditional muscle cars, nor was it as efficient or practical as compact sedans. This lack of focus left the Dart Sport 360 in a no-man's land, appealing to neither performance enthusiasts nor economy-minded buyers. The Dart Sport 360 faced stiff competition from more established muscle cars, such as the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Camaro, and Pontiac Firebird. Even in their weakened states, these models retained stronger brand recognition and loyalty. Within Dodge's own lineup, the Charger overshadowed the Dart Sport as a more appealing performance option. Like all cars of its time, the Dart Sport 360 was hampered by emissions regulations that reduced power and efficiency. Its fuel economy was poor, further alienating buyers during a time when gas prices were a significant concern. The Dart Sport 360 serves as a cautionary tale of a car that tried to be everything to everyone, but ultimately satisfied no one. While its 360 V8 engine offered decent performance for the time, it wasn't enough to overcome the car's bland styling and lack of identity. In hindsight, the Dart Sport 360's failure illustrates the challenges automakers faced during the 1970s as they tried to navigate the shifting automotive landscape. Many muscle cars struggled to adapt to new regulations and changing consumer preferences, leading to a period of stagnation for the segment. Bold, distinctive styling is crucial for any car that aims to stand out, particularly in the muscle car segment. The Dart Sport 360's plain design failed to inspire buyers. Cars need a well-defined purpose and target audience. The Dart Sport 360's lack of focus made it difficult to market effectively. Automakers must innovate in the face of regulatory and market changes. The Dart Sport 360's reliance on an outdated formula highlighted Dodge's struggle to adapt during this period. The 1975 Dodge Dart Sport 360 is a prime example of a car that had potential but failed to deliver. Its decent engine performance was overshadowed by uninspired styling and a lack of clear direction. In a decade where muscle cars were fighting to stay relevant, the Dart Sport 360 serves as a reminder of how difficult it was to succeed in a rapidly changing market. Number 1, 1972 Ford Grand Torino Sport. A car that perfectly encapsulates the struggle of muscle cars during the early 1970s. The Grand Torino Sport was a striking vehicle with undeniable road presence, but it failed to live up to its bold looks due to a lack of true muscle car performance. The early 1970s marked a turning point for muscle cars. Several key factors played a role in their decline. Stricter laws, including the Clean Air Act, forced automakers to detune engines, resulting in reduced horsepower and performance. Rising premiums for high-performance cars discourage younger buyers, the primary audience for muscle cars. New crash regulations added weight to cars, further hampering their performance. While the 1973 oil embargo had not yet struck, rising gas prices were already prompting buyers to consider fuel efficiency over raw power. The Gran Torino Sport debuted in 1972, a year that symbolized the muscle car's transition from a performance icon to a heavier, more comfort-focused machine. The Gran Torino Sport was part of Ford's redesigned Torino lineup, which adopted a longer, wider, and lower profile. It featured bold styling, including a dramatic fastback roofline and an aggressive front grille inspired by NASCAR racers. Optional trim packages, such as the laser stripe along the sides, enhanced its sporty image, giving it the visual appeal of a true muscle car. Buyers had several engine choices, ranging from the base 250 cubic inch inline-six to a 429 cubic inch V8. The most common engine for the Gran Torino Sport was the 302 cubic inch or 351 cubic inch V8, which provided decent power but fell short of muscle car expectations. Stricter emissions regulations and lower compression ratios resulted in diminished horsepower across the lineup. Despite its sporty appearance, the Gran Torino Sport prioritized comfort over speed. Its heavier weight, softened suspension, and focus on a smooth ride diluted the car's performance capabilities. While it offered competent acceleration with larger V8s, it lacked the raw excitement that muscle car enthusiasts sought. Ford's decision to position the Gran Torino Sport as more of a personal luxury coupe alienated traditional muscle car buyers. The emphasis on size and comfort came at the expense of handling and agility, key elements of the muscle car formula. Even with the larger engine options, the Gran Torino Sport could not match the performance of competitors like the Chevrolet SS or Dodge Charger. The lower horsepower ratings made the car feel sluggish compared to earlier muscle car standards. The 1972 Gran Torino Sport weighed significantly more than its predecessors thanks to its larger dimensions and new safety features. The added weight negatively impacted acceleration, braking, and overall driving dynamics. The Gran Torino Sport faced stiff competition from more focused muscle cars, such as the Pontiac GTO and Chevrolet Camaro. Its attempt to straddle the line between muscle car and personal luxury coupe left it in a gray area, appealing to neither group fully. The Gran Torino Sport is often remembered more for its striking looks than its performance. While it succeeded in turning heads, it failed to deliver the driving excitement that muscle car buyers craved. Over time, it became clear that the Gran Torino Sport marked the beginning of a shift away from performance and toward comfort and style in Ford's midsize lineup. A car can look like a muscle car, but without the performance to back it up, it won't win over enthusiasts. The Gran Torino Sport's inability to commit fully to either the muscle car or personal luxury segment resulted in an unclear identity, weakening its appeal in both markets. Automakers must innovate to meet new regulations and market demands without sacrificing the core essence of their vehicles. The Gran Torino Sport's compromises highlight the difficulty of striking this balance. The 1972 Ford Gran Torino Sport stands as a cautionary tale of a muscle car that prioritized style over substance. While its bold design captured the spirit of the muscle car era, its lackluster performance and focus on comfort marked a shift away from the raw, thrilling experience that enthusiasts had come to expect. As we reflect on the Gran Torino Sport, it's clear that it symbolizes the challenges muscle cars faced in adapting to the rapidly changing automotive landscape of the 1970s.